My sister-in-law secretly recorded me, then showed it to my wife's family, and it destroyed her life instead. Hello, everyone. Before we begin today's video, I need your help. We've noticed that the channel is losing traction, and subscribing is one of the best ways you can help us. It's simple, free, and allows us to keep bringing you great content. Your support means everything. Let's keep this channel growing collectively. Thank you very much. Now let's begin the video. So since some of you have requested the complete tale, I guess I should start at the beginning. This is going to be long, but whatever. Hello everyone, I'm still reeling from the absolute chaos that my sister-in-law, Lucy, unleashed on our family recently. I never thought I would be posting something like this on Reddit, but honestly, I need to hear from unbiased people if I am somehow in the wrong here, or if I am justified in feeling the way I do. Let me give you some background. I am Aiden, 32 years old, and I have been married to my amazing wife, Hailey, who is 30, for 5 wonderful years. We have a really good relationship, we communicate well, and we generally just enjoy each other's company. Before I met Hailey, I had heard stories about her younger sister, Lucy, but honestly, nothing could have prepared me for the reality of dealing with her. Lucy, who is 28 and single, has always had a, let's call it, competitive relationship with Hailey. From what Hailey has told me growing up, Lucy always felt like she was in Hailey's shadow. Hailey was always the good student, the popular one, the one who effortlessly excelled at everything she tried. Lucy, on the other hand, struggled more academically and socially, and I think that created a deep-seated resentment towards Hailey. When Hailey and I started dating, Lucy was polite enough to my face, but I could always sense a coldness from her. It was like she was constantly sizing me up, looking for flaws, waiting for me to mess up. Over the years, it hasn't really gotten any better. She makes snide remarks, she subtly undermines my accomplishments, and she always seems to find a way to make Hailey and me feel just a little bit uncomfortable whenever we are around her. My mother-in-law, Helen, is a lovely woman, genuinely. She tries to be fair to both of her daughters, but I think she is often blind to Lucy's manipulative tendencies. Helen tends to excuse Lucy's behavior as just being Lucy, or she doesn't mean anything by it. Hailey and I have tried to talk to Helen about Lucy's behavior, but it usually ends with Helen getting defensive of Lucy, saying we are being too sensitive or that we are misinterpreting Lucy's intentions. So fast forward to last month. Hailey and I were invited to a family dinner at Helen's house. These dinners are usually a mix of pleasant conversation and underlying tension, mostly thanks to Lucy. This particular dinner was supposed to be celebrating Hailey's recent promotion at work. She had been working incredibly hard and finally got the recognition she deserved, so we were both excited to celebrate with her family. From the moment we arrived, Lucy was off. She was unusually quiet, which in itself was suspicious. Usually she is the one dominating the conversation, steering it towards topics that make her look good or make others uncomfortable. But this time, she was mostly silent, just observing everything with this strange little smirk on her face. Throughout dinner, she made a few pointed comments about Hailey's promotion, things like, "Oh, it must be nice to have such an easy job, and I bet they just promoted you because they needed to fill a quota." Hailey, being the bigger person, just brushed it off and tried to change the subject. I, on the other hand, was starting to get annoyed. I know how hard Hailey works, and to hear Lucy downplay her achievement like that was infuriating. After dinner, we were all in the living room, just chatting. Helen was showing us some old family photos, and Hailey and I were genuinely enjoying reminiscing about old memories. Lucy was sitting on the other side of the room, still quiet, still smirking. Then out of nowhere she said, "Oh, Aiden, can I talk to you for a second? In private?" I was immediately suspicious. Why would Lucy want to talk to me in private? We rarely have one-on-one conversations, and when we do, they are usually awkward and strained. But I didn't want to make a scene in front of everyone, so I just nodded and followed her out of the living room. She led me into the kitchen, and as soon as we were alone, she turned to me, her smirk widening. "So, Aiden," she began, her voice dripping with false sweetness, "I have something you might want to explain." I just stared at her, waiting for her to get to the point. "What are you talking about, Lucy?" I asked, trying to keep my tone neutral. She pulled out her phone, and my heart instantly sank. I had a bad feeling about this. She tapped on the screen a few times and then held it out to me. "Take a look at this," she said, her eyes gleaming with malicious glee. On the screen was a video of me. It was clearly taken without my knowledge, and it looked like it was filmed from inside my car. In the video, I was talking on my phone, having a conversation. I recognized the setting. It was when I was parked outside my office building last week. I watched the video, my confusion growing. It was just me talking on the phone. What was the big deal? Then, as the video continued, I realized what she was trying to do. The conversation I was having was with a female colleague of mine, Sarah. We were discussing a project we were working on together, going over some details and deadlines. It was a completely professional, work-related conversation. But Lucy, in her infinite wisdom, had decided to twist it into something it was not. She had zoomed in on my facial expressions, trying to make it look like I was being flirtatious or secretive. She had even added some dramatic music to the background of the video, and included text overlays with suggestive phrases like, "Who is Aiden talking to?" and "Is he hiding something from Hailey?" I was absolutely floored. I couldn't believe the lengths Lucy had gone to just to try and make me look bad. "Lucy, what is this?" I asked, my voice rising in disbelief. "This is just me talking to a colleague about work." "What are you trying to imply?" She just laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "Oh, come on, Aiden," she said. "Don't play innocent with me. We all know what's going on here. You think you can just sneak around behind Hailey's back and get away with it?" I was beyond angry at this point. "There is nothing going on, Lucy," I exclaimed. "This is a work call. Sarah is my colleague. We are working on a project together." Sure, Lucy said, rolling her eyes. "That's what they all say, but I'm not stupid, Aiden. I can see the way you're talking to her in this video. It's not just about work." I couldn't believe she was actually trying to convince herself of this nonsense. "Lucy, you are completely delusional," I said, shaking my head. "You have twisted a completely innocent conversation into some kind of soap opera in your head. This is ridiculous." "Is it?" she challenged, her smirk returning. "Well, why don't we show this video to Hailey and see what she thinks? Maybe she'll see through your lies." My blood ran cold. I knew Hailey would never believe Lucy's twisted version of events, but I also knew that seeing this video, with Lucy's dramatic edits and suggestive text, would still upset her. It would plant seeds of doubt, even if just for a moment, and that was exactly what Lucy wanted. "Lucy, don't you dare," I warned, my voice low and dangerous. "This is going to cause unnecessary drama and hurt Hailey for no reason. Just delete the video, and let's forget this ever happened." "Oh, I don't think so," Lucy said, shaking her head. "I think Hailey deserves to know the truth about her perfect husband." "Don't you think so, Aiden?" Before I could react, she turned and walked back into the living room, phone in hand, a triumphant look on her face. I followed her, my heart pounding in my chest, dreading what was about to happen. Lucy walked right up to Hailey, who was still looking at the photo album with Helen. "Hailey, honey," Lucy said, her voice dripping with fake concern, "I think you need to see something. It's about Aiden." Hailey looked up, a confused expression on her face. "What is it, Lucy?" she asked. Lucy held out her phone, the video still playing on the screen. "I just happened to record this earlier," she said, "and I thought you should be aware of what your husband is up to when you're not around." Hailey took the phone, her brow furrowing as she watched the video. I stood there frozen, watching her reaction. Helen, sensing something was wrong, came over and looked over Hailey's shoulder at the phone screen. As Hailey watched, her expression changed from confusion to concern, and then to anger. I could see the wheels turning in her head as she tried to make sense of what she was seeing. Lucy stood beside her, watching with that smug smirk, clearly enjoying the drama she was creating. When the video ended, Hailey looked up at me, her eyes narrowed. "Aiden, what is this?" she asked, her voice dangerously quiet. Before I could explain, Lucy jumped in. "Oh, don't worry, Hailey," she said, patting Hailey's arm condescendingly. "I'm sure he has some kind of excuse. They always do, right?" I glared at Lucy, wanting to shut her up, but I knew I needed to address Hailey's concerns first. "Hailey, honey, it's not what it looks like," I said, trying to sound calm and reassuring. "It's just a work call. I was talking to Sarah about the Johnson project. You know Sarah from the office." Hailey looked at me, searching my eyes, trying to gauge my sincerity. "Is that really all it is, Aiden?" she asked. "Because it doesn't really sound like a work call in this video. Lucy has added these suggestive texts and music." "Of course that's all it is," I insisted. "Lucy has completely manipulated this video to make it look like something it's not. She's trying to stir up trouble, Hailey. You know how she is." Helen, who had been watching silently, finally spoke up. "Lucy, what is the meaning of this?" she asked, her voice sharp. "Why would you record Aiden and then show Hailey this edited video?" Lucy, suddenly looking less smug, shrugged. "I just thought Hailey deserved to know. she mumbled, avoiding eye contact. I was just looking out for her. Looking out for her by secretly recording her husband and then trying to make him look like he's cheating, Helen said, her voice rising. Lucy, this is completely inappropriate and frankly, quite disturbing. Hailey was still looking at me, her expression unreadable. Aiden, I want to hear the actual audio of that conversation, she said, not this edited version. Can you show it to me? Of course, I said, relieved. I have nothing to hide. In fact, let me call Sarah right now and put her on speakerphone. You can hear for yourself what we were talking about. I pulled out my phone and quickly dialed Sarah's number. She answered on the third ring. Hey Aiden, what's up? She said, her voice cheerful. Hey Sarah, I said, putting her on speakerphone. Sorry to bother you on a Sunday evening, but Hailey and I are just having a family discussion about the Johnson project. Would you mind just quickly summarizing what we talked about last week when I called you from my car? Sarah, bless her heart, didn't miss a beat. Sure, no problem, she said. We were just finalizing the details for the client presentation, confirming the timeline for deliverables, and discussing the budget allocation. Pretty standard project stuff, really. Anything else you need me to clarify? Hailey, Helen, and even Lucy were listening intently. I could see Lucy's face starting to pale as Sarah spoke. The air in the room was thick with tension. No, that's perfect, Sarah, I said. Thanks so much for clarifying, we really appreciate it. No problem at all, Aiden, Sarah said. Just let me know if you need anything else. Good luck with your family discussion. She hung up, leaving silence in the living room. Hailey looked at Lucy, her expression now a mixture of anger and disappointment. Lucy, she said, her voice trembling slightly, what the hell was that? You deliberately tried to make Aiden look like he was cheating on me. You edited a video, added music and suggestive text, all to create drama and hurt us. Why would you do something like that? Lucy was silent for a moment, her face flushed red. Then she mumbled, I just wanted to make sure you were okay, Hailey. I was just looking out for you. Looking out for me, Hailey repeated, incredulous. By trying to destroy my marriage, by making me doubt the man I love and trust, that's your idea of looking out for me. Helen stepped forward, her face stern. Lucy, I am incredibly disappointed in you, she said. This behavior is unacceptable. You owe Aiden and Hailey a sincere apology. Lucy crossed her arms, her lower lip jutting out. I don't need to apologize, she muttered. I didn't do anything wrong. I just showed Hailey the truth. The truth, Hailey scoffed. Lucy, you didn't show me the truth. You showed me a twisted, manipulated version of the truth that you fabricated in your own jealous little mind. You are so obsessed with creating drama and making everyone miserable. I am done with it, Lucy. I am done with you. Tears welled up in Hailey's eyes, and she turned away from Lucy, burying her face in her hands. I went to her side, putting my arm around her, pulling her close. Helen put a comforting hand on Hailey's shoulder, glaring at Lucy. Lucy stood there, looking defiant for a moment, but then her bravado seemed to crumble. She looked around at our faces, at the anger and disappointment directed at her, and for the first time, I saw a flicker of something else in her eyes. Regret, shame, I couldn't quite tell. Without saying another word, Lucy turned and stormed out of the house, slamming the door behind her. We stood there in silence for a moment, the tension slowly dissipating. Hailey finally looked up at me, her eyes still teary but her expression softening. I am so sorry, Aiden, she said. I should have trusted you more. I shouldn't have even entertained Lucy's nonsense for a second. Hey, it's okay, I said, squeezing her hand. It's understandable that you were upset. Lucy is really good at twisting things, but the important thing is that we know the truth and we trust each other. That's all that matters. Helen sighed, shaking her head. I don't know what to do with Lucy, she said, her voice filled with weariness. She just keeps sabotaging herself and everyone around her. I try to be understanding, but this is just too much. The rest of the evening was subdued. Hailey and I stayed for a little while longer, trying to reassure Helen and talk through everything that had happened. But the celebratory mood for Hailey's promotion was definitely gone. Lucy had successfully managed to derail the entire evening, even if her plan to expose me had completely backfired. The next day, Hailey and I talked more about Lucy and her behavior. We realized that this wasn't just a one-off incident. Lucy's manipulative and jealous tendencies had been escalating for years, and we had been enabling her by constantly trying to smooth things over and avoid confrontation. We decided that things needed to change. We couldn't keep letting Lucy disrupt our lives and our family dynamic. We needed to set boundaries, and we needed to be firm about enforcing them. We also decided that Helen needed to be involved in this process. She was Lucy's mother, and ultimately, she was the one who needed to address Lucy's behavior and help her get the help she clearly needed. We called Helen and arranged to meet her for lunch. We explained to her how Lucy's actions were affecting us and how we were concerned about Lucy's well-being. To our surprise, Helen was much more receptive this time. Maybe she had finally reached her breaking point with Lucy's antics, or maybe she had finally realized the extent of Lucy's manipulative behavior. Whatever the reason, Helen agreed that something needed to be done. She admitted that she had been too lenient with Lucy in the past, trying to avoid conflict and keep the peace. But she now understood that her approach wasn't working, and that Lucy's behavior was only getting worse. Together, we came up with a plan. Helen would sit down with Lucy and have a serious conversation with her. She would explain how Lucy's actions were hurting the family, and how they could no longer tolerate her manipulative and destructive behavior. Helen would also suggest that Lucy seek professional help to address her underlying issues and learn healthier ways of coping with her emotions. It was a long shot, we knew. Lucy was notoriously stubborn and resistant to any kind of criticism or suggestion, but we had to try, for Hailey's sake, for Helen's sake, and even for Lucy's own sake. A few days later, Helen called us. She sounded exhausted but also hopeful. She had talked to Lucy, and surprisingly, Lucy had been somewhat receptive. Apparently, when Helen confronted her about the video incident and her overall pattern of behavior, Lucy had finally broken down. She had admitted that she was jealous of Hailey, that she felt insecure and inadequate, and that she often acted out because she didn't know how else to deal with those feelings. Helen had suggested therapy, and to our astonishment, Lucy had agreed to consider it. She hadn't made any promises, but she had said she would think about it. It was a small step, but it was a step in the right direction. We were cautiously optimistic. We knew that Lucy's issues wouldn't be resolved overnight, and that there would likely be setbacks and challenges along the way. But for the first time in a long time, we felt like there was a glimmer of hope for Lucy and for our family dynamic. Then things took another unexpected turn. About a week after Helen's conversation with Lucy, I received a call from an unknown number. I usually ignore calls from numbers I don't recognize, but for some reason, I decided to answer this one. "Hello, this is Aiden," I said. "Hi, Aiden, this is Detective Miller from the local police department," the voice on the other end said. My heart skipped a beat. "We are investigating a report of illegal recording and harassment filed by your sister-in-law, Lucy Smith. We would like to ask you some questions about this matter. Can you come down to the station at your earliest convenience?" I was completely stunned. "Lucy filed a police report against me," I stammered. "For what?" "I haven't done anything wrong. According to Miss Smith, you have been harassing her and illegally recording her without her consent," Detective Miller said. "She has provided us with some video evidence to support her claims." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Lucy had not only tried to sabotage my marriage, but now she was trying to frame me for harassment and illegal recording. This was beyond insane. "Detective, this is completely false," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "It's the other way around. Lucy illegally recorded me and then manipulated the video to try and make me look bad. She showed the video to my wife and mother-in-law in an attempt to cause trouble. I have witnesses who can corroborate my story. In fact, my mother-in-law was the one who told Lucy that her actions were inappropriate and disturbing." Detective Miller listened patiently to my explanation. "Mr. Smith, we need to hear your side of the story in person," he said. "Please come down to the station as soon as possible so we can clarify this situation." I agreed to go to the police station the next day. I was nervous, but also determined to clear my name and expose Lucy's lies. I called Hailey and Helen and told them what had happened. They were both as shocked and outraged as I was. They immediately offered to come to the police station with me and give their statements as witnesses. The next day, we went to the police station together. I explained everything to Detective Miller, providing him with all the details of Lucy's video recording and her attempt to frame me. Hailey and Helen both gave their statements, corroborating my story and describing Lucy's manipulative behavior. We also showed Detective Miller Lucy's edited video, highlighting the suggestive text and music she had added. We explained how she had twisted a completely innocent conversation into something malicious and untrue. Detective Miller listened attentively, taking notes and asking clarifying questions. He seemed to be taking our accusations seriously, and I started to feel a glimmer of hope that justice might actually be served in this situation. After we had given our statements, Detective Miller told us that they would investigate the matter further. He said they would need to interview Lucy and review the video evidence she had provided. He also said they would consider our statements and the evidence we had presented. We left the police station feeling drained but also relieved. We had done everything we could to defend ourselves and expose Lucy's lies. Now all we could do was wait and see what the police investigation would reveal. To our surprise, it didn't take long for things to unfold. Just 2 days later, we received another call from Detective Miller. This time his tone was different. It was almost amused. "Mr. Smith," he said, "we have interviewed Miss Lucy Smith and reviewed the video evidence she provided. And, well, let's just say things are not quite as she described them." My heart pounded in my chest. "What do you mean, Detective?" I asked, barely daring to breathe. "Well, it seems that Miss Smith's video evidence backfired, shall we say," Detective Miller chuckled. "It turns out that while she was trying to frame you for illegal recording, she inadvertently recorded herself admitting to, well, let me just read you the relevant section of the transcript." He cleared his throat and then began to read. Quote, "I know I shouldn't be doing this, but I have to find out what Aiden is hiding. He's always been so smug and perfect, and Hailey is always singing his praises. I just know he's not as great as everyone thinks he is. I'm going to record him and find something, anything, to expose him and show Hailey the truth, even if I have to embellish things a little bit." Unquote. Detective Miller paused, and I could hear him trying to suppress his laughter. "Mr. Smith, are you familiar with this statement?" he asked. I was speechless. Lucy had actually recorded herself admitting to her entire scheme. It was unbelievable. "Yes, Detective," I said, my voice trembling with a mixture of shock and triumph. "That sounds exactly like something Lucy would do. She literally recorded herself confessing to her plan to frame me." "Indeed she did," Detective Miller confirmed. "And to make matters even more interesting, it seems that Miss Smith's recording device also captured some other, shall we say, incriminating statements. Statements that are not related to you, Mr. Smith, but are potentially damaging to Miss Smith herself." My curiosity was piqued. "What kind of statements, Detective?" I asked. Detective Miller hesitated for a moment. "Mr. Smith, this is a bit sensitive," he said. "It involves some personal information about Miss Smith that she clearly did not intend to share. Are you sure you want to know the details?" "Yes, Detective, I do," I said firmly. "After everything Lucy has put us through, I think we deserve to know the full extent of her scheme." Detective Miller sighed. "All right, Mr. Smith," he said. "But don't say I didn't warn you. It turns out that in her private recordings, Miss Smith made some rather unflattering remarks about her employer, her colleagues, and even some of her family members. She also confessed to engaging in some questionable business practices at her workplace. Things like falsifying documents, misusing company funds, and, well, let's just say it's not pretty." I was stunned into silence. Lucy, in her desperate attempt to frame me, had inadvertently recorded herself confessing to a whole host of other wrongdoings. It was almost too ridiculous to be true. "Detective," I said, finally finding my voice, "are you saying that Lucy incriminated herself in other potential crimes while trying to frame me?" "That is precisely what I am saying, Mr. Smith," Detective Miller confirmed. "And based on the evidence we have gathered, including Miss Smith's own recordings, we have decided to drop the investigation against you. In fact, we are now opening a separate investigation into Miss Smith's other activities. We will be contacting her employer and the relevant authorities to inform them of our findings." I was speechless. I couldn't believe how spectacularly Lucy's plan had backfired. She had tried to destroy my life, and in the process she had completely destroyed her own. It was karma in its purest, most ironic form. "Detective," I said, still trying to process everything, "what does this mean for Lucy? Will she be arrested? Will she face charges?" "It's too early to say for sure, Mr. Smith," Detective Miller replied. "But based on the nature of the allegations and the evidence we have, it is certainly a possibility. Miss Smith could face charges for various offenses, depending on the outcome of our investigation and the decisions of the relevant authorities. It's safe to say that she is in a very precarious situation right now." I hung up the phone, still reeling from the conversation. I immediately called Hailey and Helen and told them everything. They were both equally stunned and amazed. We couldn't believe how dramatically things had turned around. Lucy's attempt to frame me had not only failed, but it had also exposed her own wrongdoings and potentially ruined her life. Update 1. Hey Reddit, I'm honestly shocked at how many people responded to my original post. I never expected this story to gain so much traction, but I guess it just goes to show how crazy family drama can be. Anyway, lots of you have been asking for an update on what happened with Lucy, so here it is. Well, as you can imagine, things have been absolutely insane since my last post. The police investigation into Lucy is still ongoing, but let's just say things are not looking good for her. Her employer was contacted by the police, and they have launched their own internal investigation into her questionable business practices. I've heard through the grapevine that she has been suspended from her job pending the outcome of both investigations, and it's highly likely that she will be fired. But that's not even the worst of it for Lucy. Remember those unflattering remarks she made about her family members in her secret recordings? Well, guess who else the police contacted as part of their investigation? You guessed it, Helen. Detective Miller had to inform Helen about the contents of Lucy's recordings, including the nasty things she said about her own mother and sister. Helen was absolutely devastated. She was already heartbroken and disappointed by Lucy's behavior, but to hear the things Lucy had said about her behind her back, it was just too much. She told me she felt betrayed and deeply hurt. She said she couldn't believe her own daughter could be so cruel and vindictive. Hailey is also incredibly hurt and angry. She always knew that Lucy was jealous of her, but she never imagined that Lucy harbored so much resentment and animosity towards her. To hear Lucy badmouth her and their mother in those recordings, it was a real wake-up call for Hailey. She finally realized that Lucy's issues were much deeper and more serious than she had ever imagined. As for Lucy herself, well, she has completely disappeared. She's not answering her phone, she's not responding to texts, and she's basically gone off the grid. Helen is worried sick about her, but honestly, I think Lucy is just trying to avoid facing the consequences of her actions. The whole situation is just incredibly sad and messed up. Lucy's jealousy and insecurity have not only caused immense pain to our family, but they have also completely destroyed her own life. It's a tragic example of how toxic emotions and unchecked resentment can lead to self-destruction. Hailey and I are trying to support Helen as best as we can. We are also trying to process everything that has happened and figure out how to move forward. We know that things will never be quite the same with Lucy, and it's heartbreaking to think about the rift that has been created in our family. But amidst all the chaos and drama, there is a silver lining. This whole experience has actually brought Hailey and me even closer together. We have always had a strong relationship, but going through this ordeal together has solidified our bond and deepened our trust in each other. We have learned that we can rely on each other to get through even the most insane and stressful situations. And honestly, that's the biggest takeaway from all of this. Family drama is inevitable, and sometimes people we love will disappoint us and hurt us. But at the end of the day, what really matters is the strength of our own relationships and the love and support we have for each other. So, yeah, that's the update. It's still a developing situation, and I'm sure there will be more twists and turns to come. But for now, we are just trying to take things one day at a time and focus on healing and moving forward. Thanks again to everyone who commented on my original post and offered their support and advice. It really means a lot to know that there are people out there who understand and care. Thoughts? Thank you for watching. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do so and hit the notification bell to stay updated with more shocking real-life stories happening around you.